Live. I'm just waiting a little while because when I do these live streams, sometimes it actually cuts off the first few seconds. I'm not sure exactly how much. So I'm just going to wait a little bit. We're at 20 seconds right now, so hopefully the live stream is truly live now. Jouts, nu abti, ekekalas Sakapens. Hello, I'm called Ab. Happy Friday, and welcome to the islak live stream. There was a bit of a delayed reaction there. had to press the button a few times to get it to actually play. So I'm still really proud of myself for actually being able to make that work sometimes. Being able to actually have the theme song play automatically during the live stream. It took quite a bit of work to actually work that out, but I'm glad that that is working. And I'm actually going to switch my screen here. So this is the thumbnail. So I decided to make this a part of the live stream as showing the thumbnail because on YouTube, this is something that I'm going to add after the live stream ends. I'm not able to actually post the link to the live stream until I actually start it. So I'm actually going to wait until I'm finished the live stream before I go in to YouTube and actually upload the thumbnail. Because I put a lot of work into these thumbnails. You've probably noticed that if you've been watching them, they've changed over the past few weeks. And so I just like to give people an opportunity to look at the thumbnail for each live stream. So you've got islak, you've got the word live stream there. You've got today's date. You've got Hank T there in the corner. And we've got me on top of Hank's head. And I think if you're watching the YouTube live stream right now, you'll probably see Hank T's head again in the bottom right-hand corner. So last week I'd actually changed. So I switched the camera over to the left-hand corner, so I was there instead of the right-hand corner. But it looks like the watermark, the Hank T watermark, only appears during the actual YouTube live stream. So getting back to showing the thumbnail, I also simulcast to Facebook, and Facebook doesn't really give you any choice as to the video preview, so you can't really upload a customized thumbnail to Facebook. So if I were able to do that on Facebook, this is what it would look like. And so this is the thumbnail for this week. It took me a while to settle on this arrangement, and you've probably noticed that I'm a little bit early today. I got things set up early and did some testing, made sure everything was working okay, and I thought rather than sit around and wait, I'd just go live. So I went live a couple of minutes before 2 o'clock. So normally I'll be doing the live streams beginning 2 p.m. on Fridays. Again, that's most Fridays. Fridays that I am at work and I don't have other things happening. So that's what I'll be doing. The live streams have been a little bit shorter lately. I haven't been doing the root word analysis lately, partly because it does take a long time to actually go through them, even though I think it's a really interesting exercise. I think you kind of get the idea if you've been watching, if you watch the first few live streams, and you get a better idea of the kind of work that I do, and that's an exercise that I developed to help me learn more about the language, and it's something that actually has really helped me a lot. And I do continue to do them on my own. So I stopped doing them and the live stream so I could focus on some other things. So this week I have a couple of other things planned. So I'm going to go to my PDF document here. And what I did here was I took a look at the word weetnuks. That's this word here at the top. Weetnuks. Weetnuks can mean to go home. What I did here was I looked up the word in different Heisla dictionaries to see how each linguist defined the word weetnuks. So I started with Heinvink. So he published a dictionary in 1980, and this is the way he spelled it. He was the first linguist that developed a standard writing system for the Heisla language. So you can see this goes back to 1980, which was quite a while ago. And this is on page 80 or 74 of the Heinvink dictionary, which is basically called a dictionary of Heisla. So I made some notes here. You see this W has an apostrophe on top of it. So I made note of this, and I said that Heinvink had a tendency to add apostrophes where they weren't actually needed. And I've seen this quite a bit in Heinvink's writing. And I just wanted to make note of that. Furthermore, none of the other linguists, like the linguists who came after him, none of them used a glottalized W in this word. They would use a regular W. So just a plain W, no apostrophe on top. And also it's interesting to point out that this was Heinvink's second orthography, his second writing system. His first writing system appeared in a course that he called a first course in Heisla, and it was slightly different than his orthography that's used in his dictionary a few years later. So one thing that I pointed out here is that there's this symbol. It kind of looks like, I call it a straight apostrophe. It's not highlighting for some reason, but I call it a straight apostrophe. Some linguists or other people have described it as like a small raised L. Either way is a good way to describe it, but I tend to describe it as a straight apostrophe, and this is to signify a stressed syllable. So you see there's the W and then an I, and then that straight apostrophe or a dash after the I. What this means is we're placing emphasis on the first syllable. Weetnuks. So you should hear a difference. Weetnuks. So there's more emphasis being placed on the first syllable. And that's what that dash means. So the dash comes after the first syllable. So that means that's where the accent placement goes, or the emphasis, or the stress. So later, linguists would place an accent symbol on top of a vowel, a stressed vowel instead. So you can see here in brackets, I have two different representations. So this was Heinvink's representation of a stressed syllable, where you have the vowel and then the straight apostrophe, as opposed to an accented I. So you have an I, you have the kind of slanted dash on top of it instead of the dot. So that is an acute accent on top of a lowercase I. And that's how the later linguists would signify a stressed accent. Another thing that I wanted to point out here is that Heinvink also used like a small raised O, or a degree symbol. So you know here in Canada, we use this symbol to signify temperature. So if it's like 27 degrees Celsius, then we put a 27 and then this small raised O and then the large C. So it's basically the same symbol, but in Heinvink's case, he used it to signify rounded consonants. Again, this is in his second orthography. He did it differently in his other writing systems. Later linguists would use a small raised W instead of the degree symbol or the small raised O. So you can see here, this is the way Heinvink represented a rounded K. You have a K with a degree symbol. Other linguists that came afterwards would use a small raised W, kwa. So they both sound exactly the same way. They're just different ways of visually representing the kwa sound or the rounded K sound. So that was Heinvink. He defined Wheatnucks as go home. Next is Lincoln and Rath in their Heisla Hinoxiala Dictionary published in 1986. You can see they had a different writing system, and their definition of Wheatnucks was go ahead or please do. And this is on page 244 of their dictionary. So Lincoln and Rath used what's called a grave accent marker. I used to call this a grave accent marker, but I've come across other pronunciations of it that makes me think it's actually a grave accent. So this is different than the accent symbol that I'm using in the hybrid orthography. And the difference is that it's pointing off to the left. So you have this kind of triangular shape, a dash, a slanted dash. So it's a grave accent mark instead of an acute accent mark, which is, it's the same symbol, but it faces the opposite way. It faces to the right. So words are still pronounced the same way, regardless of whatever accent is being used. So if it's a grave accent, like here on the left, or an acute accent, like on the right, it's essentially the same thing. This would still be Wheatnucks. So you can see this is slightly different than the way that Heinvink wrote it, and also the way he defined it. So Heinvink wrote it this way. He defined Wheatnucks as go home. Lincoln and Rath wrote it this way, and they define it as go ahead or please do. Next up is Emmon Bach. So he developed a Heisla to English dictionary in 1988. It seemed like it was a draft. I'm not sure if it was actually finished. It seemed to me like it was more of a kind of a working document. So this is Emmon Bach's first orthography, and you can see he has the he also uses that straight accent or straight apostrophe. His N is glottalized, but the apostrophe comes after, and you can see he used a small raised W. So he defines this as please or go on and this is on page 182 of his 1998 dictionary. So he had a Heisla to English dictionary, and then he had the opposite, where it was an English to Heisla dictionary. So the difference was the Heisla to English dictionary had Heisla words listed first, and then the English to Heisla dictionary had English words listed first, and that was the only difference between the two of them. So this is Emmon Bach's first orthography, where similar to Heinvink, he used that straight apostrophe symbol to signify stress placement. So again, we have the I with the straight apostrophe coming afterwards, as opposed to the accent on top of the I, or on top of a vowel. Bach also placed apostrophes after glottalized or ejective consonants. He would later change this so that he would actually put the apostrophe on top. So this is Emmon Bach's first orthography, where you have the apostrophe after an N or other consonants. This was his second orthography, which came later, where he put the apostrophe on top of a consonant. He also, I would say Emma Bach probably produced the most dictionaries out of all the linguists. So he produced another dictionary in 2006 that was called Owixis Docio. And that's the one with the yellow cover. It's a spiral-bound book. It has a clear plastic cover and then a yellow cardstock cover. So that is his probably most commonly known dictionary, and this is how he wrote it in that dictionary. This is his second orthography, and he defines it as please on page 123. So this is Emma Bach's second orthography, which is much cleaner and is primarily what the hybrid orthography is based on. So in the hybrid orthography, this word would be spelled exactly the same way. There wouldn't be any changes because the hybrid orthography is based mostly on Emma Bach's second orthography. There's a little bit of Lincoln and Rath in there, but it's just the what we call lateral symbols. But what I mean by that is instead of a DL, we use the lambda. Instead of a TL, we use a barred lambda. Instead of a T apostrophe L, we use an ejective barred lambda. And instead of an LH, we use what's called a tilde L. So it's one symbol representing one sound as opposed to two or three symbols like Emma Bach did. So that is a cross-reference of all of the different linguists in their various dictionaries. And they had different spellings of wheatnucks and different definitions. So Heinvink described wheatnucks to mean go home. Lincoln and Rath said it means go ahead or please do. Emma Bach said it means please go or please or go on, and then in his last dictionary he defined it to mean please. So there's quite a bit of variation in the definitions, so it's a little bit confusing. If you are a fluent speaker and you can shed some light on the what you would say is an accurate explanation or definition of wheatnucks, I would be very happy to hear that. Do you feel that any one of these is a more accurate description of the meaning of wheatnucks? So I'm going to switch to another tab here. And this is a feature that I call How Do You Say It? And the first word is Kitimat. Kitimat. Kitimat means snag beach. And this is the area that we refer to as Kitimat village. That's the reserve. And that's the Haisla name for that area, Kitimat, snag beach. And the next word in How Do You Say It is Manasut. Manasut. So pay particular attention to this AI in the middle. AI says I do hear some people say Manasut or Mane, but it's actually Mane. AI always sounds like never sounds like A. So that's how I know that this is the most accurate pronunciation. It's because I know that AI says So Manasut. And this is the full word. I don't shorten it when I use the word. So I always say Manasut. I always use the full word, and this refers to a sibling of the same gender. So if you're a male and you have a sibling who's also a male, then he would be your Manasut. That's my understanding of it. Some people have other definitions, other way of explaining what that means. I've heard other people describe it as just meaning brother, but I've also heard this description, which is a sibling of the same gender. I'm not sure which one is the most accurate definition, but this is my understanding of the word. It refers to a sibling that you would have that is the same gender as you. So a brother to a brother or a sister to a sister would be Menasut. And next it's time for wow, the word of the week. And it is Quitzik-sidza. Quitzik-sidza. And this is the word for moccasins. So you might not have known that we have a word for moccasins in islak, but we do, and it's Quitzik-sidza. It essentially means leather feet or leather on feet. Something along those lines. That's my understanding. Taking a look at the word structure, quitz means leather, sidza means feet. So that's the description that I would come up with based solely on the word structure. I know what those two parts of the word mean. And that's the way I would describe Quitzik-sidza. Okay, so switch back to the thumbnail here. Maybe I'll switch back to the the webcam. So that's it for this week's live stream. I'm not going to do a systems check. I'm just going to assume that everything is running properly. I'll check everything afterwards. So thank you for joining me today. You're probably not going to be able to watch it live. You'll be able to see the replay. So until next time, remember, learning is its own reward. Exquiguelas. Wa. Islak yala. Islak yala. Islak yala. And I hit the wrong button there. So you hear the Islak yala theme song again. And I think we'll end on that note.